In the upcoming patch, Odysseus' bow will see a change that is a price drop and also a bit of a damage nerf. Hi-Rez is kinda hoping or planning that this will give this item some more popularity in direct comparison to Ichaival. After going through some numbers in that regard and putting some thought into it, I highly doubt that Ichaival will be replaced by Odysseus' bow. And this kind of brought me to a thought or a topic that I've often been thinking about addressing and I've never really gotten to, but I think this may be a very good moment because now we have an item that is supposed to bring direct competition to Ichaival, but probably won't be able to. This is also not the first item that has been tried with. There was, for example, Heartseeker, which is kinda developing towards Ichaival's direction, but still, despite of having overall similar stats, can't really compete with Ichaival as a basic default item in a hunter build. Looking into all of these factors, it begs one question to me. Is Ichaival potentially too strong? I wouldn't say is it OP, because if it was OP then it was clearly going to be bought every single game, which is not the case. However, it still shows signs of being stronger than pretty much any alternative. Now, if we're looking back in the seasons a little bit, there is one item that used to kind of compete with Ichaival a little more, and that was Asi. Asi back then provided you with similar stats as it does now, only that it had 30% attack speed instead of the 20% it has now. Asi was nerfed for this particular reason. It was performing very, very well, and the attack speed really allowed it to shine. There was actually a brief period on the PTS, if I recall correctly, correct me if I'm wrong here, where Ichaival was the item that was seeing a nerf because it was slightly weaker at the time than Asi. It saw the attack speed nerf and everyone said, well, this is the wrong way around. Ichaival got the attack speed back and Asi got the attack speed nerf instead, before the patch even hit live. While back then Asi and Ichaival were direct competition, these days you will hardly see people build Asi before Ichaival. Ichaival has most of its benefit the earlier you get it. It gives you that lane bully potential, that clearing potential and all that. It really helps you accelerate the laning phase, and Asi just falls short in that comparison, while it's still not a bad item by any means. So what makes Ichaival so strong? First of all, the 30% attack speed. Now, this is not the only item with that much attack speed. There are other items that offer even more attack speed, for example, Hasten Fatalis or Odysseus' bow. Usually, those are more expensive though. 30% attack speed for 1,700 gold is a very significant amount. On top of that, you get 10 flat penetration, physical penetration. This already makes the item very, very potent overall. Because most of the other high attack speed items don't offer penetration, and penetration is kinda necessary in most hunter builds sooner or later. There is the exception of Executioner, obviously, which does provide you with attack speed and penetration, but this is percentage penetration, so it does less for you early on and only works better in later stages of the game. Similarly, Asi has penetration and attack speed, but has a lower value of attack speed. It has some more penetration in return, but that doesn't really make up for the rest of the factors which come in with the passive. So at this point, we already have a very cheap item with 1,700 gold that has a good attack speed value and penetration value. Both of these stats are crucial to almost every hunter build. If you want to have a penetration build, you need them. If you want to have a build focused on attack speed, you need them. If you want to have a crit build, you will still need them to some extent at least, simply because if you have crit with no attack speed, then you're going to be hitting too slow. And even the penetration obviously helps there to amplify the damage. So these stats are very, very valuable for hunters. And then on top of that, we have the passive. The passive gives you up to 30 power. This part of the passive in itself is very good. 30 power allow you to clear a lot better with abilities early on, give you more bully potential, and really accelerate your situation in lane in terms of clearing the wave and doing something else afterwards. So those stats combined basically have everything you want in a hunter item except lifesteal really, or obviously the later effects like crit or the concise effect, which you will get in the progress of your build later on. But the base stats here are attack speed, penetration, and power. And with those stats, the item is already great. In fact, the item is so great that you will see Hunter players often, and not just rarely, go for Ichaival despite of being in a lane against a magical ADC, against a Freya for example, or a Sol or whatever. The stats are just too good to pass up on. If you still get strong ability clear, you still get better boxing, and you still get attack speed, why should you not buy it just because the enemy doesn't get the other additional effect from the passive? These stats alone justify picking up the item for that gold value. And that's why I think Ichaival may be a little too strong. Because if these stats combined justify picking it up, then what about the additional stats that the item has? And this additional stat in particular here is the power steal from the enemy. While getting more power, you also steal up to 30 power from the enemy. This is a big part of the reason why other items cannot compete with it. For example, in regards to Heartseeker, Heartseeker has its own benefits with higher power and stuff like that, but the power is directly lowered by Ichaival, if you get hit by basics obviously. As such, it decreases the value of other items. If we take Odysseus' bow, which doesn't have power, then it means your basics will hit for less if you get hit by Ichaival, and you already don't have that much power in the first place. It also will take away from the passive of Odysseus' bow, which scales with your power. So overall, Ichaival really makes other items second to it. And it's designed for that purpose. It is designed to be an early boxing and early aggression item. But I feel like, due to the fact that it is so cheap and offers so much minus the power steal already, it might have a little bit too much to its value. In other games, those early game items also exist, but usually there is a reason to skip them. In Smite, there is not much of a reason to skip Ichaival. Even those who rush crit at the moment, who literally go for a boots, then Ichaival, and then executioner, and then right into crit build, will still have Ichaival in there. And they won't skip it because it would put them too behind in the early stages. Skipping Ichaival means giving up your early laning phase. This is something that some people do, and it is fine. For example, if you go into Devourer's Gauntlet and you're just looking for your late game build, you can absolutely do that. If you do a concise rush, you can do that, but you delay your build. You have a weak phase in the game. And every time you're not buying Ichaival as a hunter, you will have a weaker phase than the enemy. Pretty much no matter which item you buy. I feel that indicates that Ichaival may need some toning down. I don't think it does need major nerfs in any regard, but only increasing the price by 100 to 200 gold or taking away the power steal from the item and just giving it a power increase would put it in much more competition with other early game items which exist and would make the whole field in terms of build for hunters more interesting. At the same time, it has to be understood that at this point, hunters are for the most part not in a position where they need nerfs. We have some overperformers being Jingwei and Ram and Freya in the magical carry department, and the rest of the field is falling a bit behind them, but hunters as a whole are not too strong. So these nerfs should be very carefully considered, as Ichaival in itself kinda helps hunters being where they are. But at the same time, I don't think if Ichaival was nerfed slightly, then hunters would fall off much or it would change much about the general situation of them. It would just open the field for more variety in the builds. That's my take on this item. So in conclusion, I would say yes, Ichaival is a little bit too strong, and to give it more competition, it would need some slight nerfs, which would be reasonable, especially how long it has been a very highly favored pick in most hunter builds. With that, thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you for the next one tomorrow. I'll once again plug my Discord here. If you haven't checked it out yet and you want to join, there is the link to my Discord down below, discord.gg/DukeSloth. If you're subscribed to my Twitch, you also get some additional benefits, so feel free to check that out. DukeSloth, out.